So another big story today, an appeals court ruled in favor of the Republican candidate for a spot on the state Supreme Court. So this is the race that just won't seem to end. We've been talking about it for months now. You got Jefferson Griffin on the right, trails Allison Riggs on the left there by 700 and something votes. He wants to make up the difference by tossing out 60,000 ballots with missing or incorrect voter information. He says that there are identification problems there with those ballots. And today, an appeals court agreed with him. They think those 60,000 voters should have to prove their identities now months after this election. I asked WRAL state government reporter Will Doran how that's going to work. All right, well, so let's get started with this. And I don't really want to focus on the politics of all of this, but more about what this means for those 60,000 ballots and for the voters who cast those ballots. Now, the court didn't say that they should be thrown out, but they said instead that the voters should have to prove who they are and that they are who the ballots say that they are. How exactly are they going to make that work?
Yeah, so the court ruled that there's a small number of people who are going to have their ballots thrown out no matter what. People who were born overseas but can vote in North Carolina because of their parents. But for 99% of the people being challenged here, yes, the court did say that they can fight this effort to throw out their ballots. They need to contact their county board of elections. Those officials will be able to fix the problems as long as you can prove your identity, like by showing your driver's license.
So how much time do they have to do this?
Well, you should do it immediately if you were on this list. You don't have to do it now. You know, this ruling is still getting appealed. It's not going to go into effect immediately. But if this ruling does stand, it's only going to give people a few days to get everything fixed. So it makes sense to start getting things fixed now. And then even if Griffin ends up losing in the end, there's nothing stopping similar lawsuits like this in future elections. So if you're on this list, go get it fixed. Make sure your vote counts.
What about the people who can't get this fixed for a variety of reasons? Maybe somebody has passed away since they cast their ballot. Maybe somebody moved out of the state, moved out of the country. Maybe they're not paying attention to the news cycle. Will their vote simply not count?
That's a great question. You know, people, if you see your friends or your family members on this list, definitely tell them. But for people that you mentioned, maybe they've died, they can't do this in time. That's going to be something for the State Board of Elections to figure out. This is going to go back to them eventually to kind of implement these rules, and you know, there could always be more lawsuits about how they decide to handle that. So
exactly, and that makes it very difficult to determine when this all will be over, because this is not the end, essentially. Riggs always could appeal, for instance, which she likely will. Also, there's the federal version of this case. So can you give us an idea of what is next?
Yes, this case is still going to be winding its way through the court system. This was just a 3-judge panel at the Court of Appeals. Justice Riggs could ask the entire 15-person court to take that up. She could also go back to the Supreme Court, where there would be 6 justices voting on it because she's recused herself from that. So we could have a tie at the Supreme Court. That gets into further complications into what happens there. And then this could all go back to the federal courts. It's been in federal courts before. They kicked it back down to the state, but it could go back up. This could eventually go to the U.S. Supreme Court in the end.
And the beat goes on.
Yes.
Thank you, Will.